Justice Sewa if you are talking and this information was sent the ama a speaker of parliament Alban Bagbin take a decision say a seat mako na a vacant abra na say a year abanon so no ya to abay yi manfo so mo megina a year and answer omo seat na a vacant no omo ma metina so no omo famboa Ghana na say omo hyemra na omo nyemra na say omo nye nyoma betima bo oman Ghana mu ase abra ɛyɛ abansuma Bagbin ka sɛ ɔmpene ɛma saa nkɔfo wei ɛma mɛtena ɛyɛ mmarahyɛbadwam na kyerɛ sɛ ɔmboa anaasɛ ɔmomboa ɛma biribi ankɔ yie wɔ ɔman Ghana mu ase ɛma ɔka sɛ seat 9 no ɛyɛ vacant ɛma nsɛnsɛm bebree ba ɛma NDC amane constituency deɛ ɔne ɔmo na ɛyɛ majority MPP amane constituency sɛ ɔmompene ɛma asɛm ɛkɔpie court na abra justice Afiase watɔko no ɛde ɛyɛ judgement ne ba to abɔnten na kyerɛ sɛ wache Alban Bagbin say decision na o take here no eni mmara bia mu na the oyɛ no emfa mmara kwan so na mummy nkuti nsɛm mu nkyɛ mu. Let's also be subscribe to my channel, be like it. What do I join chance to be good comment section kama. Me do bibi ase.
Your boy, Odame, Yatendra, appearing with Alfred Tia, your boy, Deputy Yatendra. Miss Dana Asnabadapa, Deputy Attorney. Dr. Sylvia Adusu, Chief State Attorney. And Miss Victoria Adoti, State Attorney.
Principal State Attorney.
No,
Sorry.
Chief State Attorney.
Chief State Attorney. I'm sorry for.
Yes.
And
Miss Victoria Adoti.
Alote.
Adoti. State Attorney.
By court, in a majority decision of 5-2, Lovelace Johnson JSC and Amadou Tanko JSC dissenting on the issue of jurisdiction, the plaintiff's action succeeds. The full reasons and orders of the court shall be filed with the registrar by close of day tomorrow, 13th November 2024. This is the judgment of the court.
Let me go to Kweku Asante, who will now give us a scope on what exactly has been happening. Kweku, what's happening?
Well, I think the court has spoken in very clear and emphatic terms, and of course it must be done. The only thing anybody has to do is to respect the constitution. That is the mark of a civilized democratic order. It leaves no room for any argument whatsoever, and the majority decision, very big majority, clear majority, 5-2. It's not as if it was a narrow majority, 3 to 4 or 4 to 3, that anyone can say, well, there's some room for kind of review or anything at all. But the point I'm making is that whenever the court speaks, it's such a clear and emphatic order. Even if it's a very narrow majority, that's the decision of the court, and that decision must be respected. And I'm saying that it results in a degeneration of our society and a destruction of our democratic order for anybody at all to refuse to comply with orders of the Supreme Court. And I think that's non-negotiable. It's something that we must all respect. I have heard some statements by certain political actors to the effect that the case ought to be withdrawn and that there ought to be negotiation and all that. I'm quite surprised because indeed, firstly, I did not hear such expression of a willingness to negotiate and all, or maybe such instruction to the speaker or direct suggestion to the speaker for negotiation and all, when the speaker started embarking on this act. And I think that, for me, it's very important that the Supreme Court ruled upon this matter, because it is something that had been occurring in this country. A tendency for it to occur really was there. A tendency for it to occur again was there. It was necessary that the Supreme Court came to this clear conclusion and determination of the matter, the meaning of Article 97, Clause 1, paragraphs G and H. And I think we must all respect it.
What do you expect to happen in Parliament? Parliament is currently on break. What do you expect to happen with the Speaker of Parliament in particular also?
I think the Speaker of Parliament himself, to start with, indicated in his address to the press last week that the case raised very serious legal issues. Those were serious legal issues and matters bordering on governance in the country. And first, so I must express my shock, utter shock, at this refusal to even file a process. If indeed the Speaker of Parliament himself recognized that the matter raised serious legal issues, as he said to the media last week, where else would you address legal issues but in the court of law? Where else would you have such a definitive pronouncement on the so-called serious legal issue that the Speaker himself recognized in his press statement, done by the Supreme Court of Ghana? So as for the Speaker of Parliament, indeed, is law-abiding. I've known him for a very long time to comply with the decision of the Supreme Court. As I said, it is non-negotiable in every civilized society. When an order of the court is given, no matter how highly placed or lowly placed the court is, even if it's a magistrate's court, you have to obey until it is set aside.
Speaking of knowing him,
what does it relate to this? The American Constitution itself, very thin, as we all know. Yet, the Supreme Court, that Constitution has survived over 200 years. I think that, of course, there are certain provisions in the Constitution that I think that ought to be amended, and I've expressed my views on it to the media. Article 78, Clause 1, which enjoins the President to appoint majority of his ministers from Parliament, ought to be amended. There ought to be that flexibility. I think that certain institutions, for example, the Electoral Commission, NCC, and what have you, the appointment of their heads has to be with the prior approval of Parliament. But I don't think that it calls for a complete overhaul of the Constitution. And indeed, this Constitution is very strong. And it is one Constitution which even goes as far as prescribing consequences of a failure to carry out the Supreme Court order. The Supreme Court order, the consequences are set out clearly in Article 2, Clauses 3, 4, and 5 of the Constitution, that any person to whom an order of the Supreme Court is directed shall duly carry out same. And the failure to carry out such an order, of course, has the consequences of a criminal punishment. In the case of the president, will even result in the president and vice president, will result in removal from office.
And finally, do you expect the Speaker of Parliament to recall Parliament on his own volition after this ruling, given that the court has spoken in such a wide manner?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as I said, it's an emphatic determination by the court on the matter, and the Speaker of Parliament has no option but to comply. I mean, I think that we must stop giving with one hand and taking with the other. As I said, it really amounts to double standards and an exercise in contradiction for the Speaker of Parliament in his address to the media say that the case raises such serious legal issues and matters bordering on governance and all that, and then refuse to take back. So this country refuse to take part in the proceedings. I think in this country we must recognize some people for who they are and what they do. This hypocrisy and double standards must cease. The Supreme Court is the